Greetings, boils and ghouls, goblins and ghosts. You're tuning into Too Ghoul for School, the podcast, a death-style podcast for the morbidly inclined. Class is in session. I'm your ghoulish hostess, Jocelyn Wen, aka Glamour Ghoul Beauty School. I'm an actress, I have my BA in psychology, and I'm a purveyor of all things dark and spooky. With Easter coming up this weekend, I felt it was an opportune time that we cover the holiday's pagan roots, similarly to how we learned about Samhain for Halloween and Yule for Christmas. I will take you on a fairly deep but digestible dive on the pagan origins of Easter. So without further ado, introducing the third of the four major witches' sabbats or pagan sabbats, Ostara, also known as the Spring Equinox. The Spring Equinox, or Ostara, is honored by pagans all around the world to signify the first day of spring. So while a solstice denotes the longest day of the year, like the summer solstice, or the shortest day of the year, like the winter solstice, an equinox is when there is an even balance between daylight and nighttime. All these occurrences mark the end of one season and the beginning of the next. So in the case of Ostara, the cold, dreary winter months are coming to an end, and plants and leaves are beginning to regrow. Baby animals are born as spring starts. It's a time of renewal and rebirth. Ostara is thought to come from the Anglo-Saxon fertility goddess Ostara or Eostere, and the word Easter is derived from the same root, Ostern, which means east, as in the cardinal direction. So a little bit of history. In 312 AD, Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity. Now, Constantine, knowing that the pagans wouldn't just give up their practices and traditions, began to slowly integrate pagan rituals into Christian festivities, much like the Catholics adopting Samhain traditions into All Hallows Eve, as you might remember from the Origins of Halloween episode last season. The Church Council would later decide that Easter should fall on the Sunday following the first full moon after the spring equinox. So this year, Easter is on April 9th, while the spring equinox, or Ostara, again, the point where day and night is perfectly equal, was March 20th. And in case you are wondering, the first full moon after the spring equinox was April 6th, so last night, but you can still get, your spooky spell works in for the next couple of days, so no worries. You can still put your crystals out, put your moon water out if you so desire. The associations for rebirth and renewal in the springtime in nature soon came to be associated with the resurrection and rebirth of Christ. So both Ostara and Easter celebrate life triumphing over death. In contrast to the fall, when farmers are reaping the harvest of that year's crops, the spring kicks off the beginning of a busy planting season for them, especially in agrarian cultures. So the farmers will be tilling their fields and sowing the first seeds of their crops. And this is worth noting because many of the rituals and practices that we employ as modern pagans or witches are coming from these ancient customs that were fertility as well as crop yielding rituals, basically asking the gods and goddesses to imbue us with abundance and fortune in this year's harvests. I wanted to touch on Easter's symbolism in connection to spring and spring equinox. Particularly, one thing I've always wondered is what hares or rabbits and eggs have to do with the resurrection of Christ and Easter. There are a lot of conflicting perspectives when it comes to parsing out the exact origins and reasons why we include rabbits and hares and eggs in these traditions. So based off the Northumbrian monk in AD 725, Bede, Easter does come from the German goddess Eostere, and building off of that, Jacob Grimm, who you might recognize from the writing duo The Brothers Grimm, said it is also likely derived from the German Ostern, meaning east, and then it was reconstructed into Ostara, which is the holiday that pagans celebrate. And there's a lot of archaeological research that seems to support the worship of a fertility goddess, Eostare, and that it was practiced in many parts of England and Germany, and that her major symbol, was the hare. In any case, whether you agree with this or not, what we can safely conclude is that rabbits, hares, and eggs are symbolic representations of the same thing: fertility. Hares because of their famously abundant ability to procreate, and eggs as they represent female gametes, such as the ovum or egg cell. These have been representations of virility or fertility for thousands of years, spanning multiple cultures. Hopefully you don't have to explain that to your kid why, if they ask why the Easter Bunny is why an Easter Bunny. I mean, I guess you're safe. Do they really ask, like, why Santa? I mean, I probably did. I probably did. I mean, you could just say that that's when rabbits are born, in the spring. So there you go. That's like a good non-answer, but not dishonest. Now that we got that cleared up, egg hunts. Why do we do them? Well, according to an article by English Heritage, the custom of the egg hunt, however, comes from Germany. Some suggest that its origins date back to the late 16th century when the Protestant reformer Martin Luther organized egg hunts for his congregation. The men would hide eggs for the women and children to find. This was a nod to the story of the resurrection, in which the empty tomb was discovered by women. So it does appear that egg hunts are a Christian tradition, while the inclusion of the symbols of hares, rabbits, eggs are of pagan origins. This isn't to say that the two are distinct, pagan and Christianity. It seems, as we are looking at many of these Sabbats, that a lot of Catholic Christian practices are much informed by pagan traditions. Again, it's by these different, like Constantine and different emperors, wisely choosing to integrate these practices so that people of the time who were largely pagan could get on board with the new order of the church or state or country religion. So to wrap up, I'm going to leave you with some ways to celebrate the spring equinox, or Ostara. Ostara is a great time to begin sowing seeds, literally and figuratively. Of course, planting seeds for various flowers and herbs for your personal garden. You can do this in conjunction with beginning a new chapter of your life, whether it be a new goal, a career venture, or even a new relationship. It's a symbolic way to welcome new intentions and dreams that you hope to manifest in the coming months. It's kind of a welcoming of these things in a gesture. If you're like me and you don't have a ton of space, you could just do a small flower pot, choosing herbs and flowers that correspond with the ideals that you want to implement. For example, spearmint for attracting wealth, and rosemary for love and positivity. And this is just one example of something you can do to honor spring and the spring equinox. There's so many more. You can Google Ostara rituals or spring equinox rituals. I often will just go to Instagram. A really great handle that I like is Witchy Tips. They already have something for an egg ritual that I'm going to look into. So just a few ideas, but there's no right or wrong way. That's what I love about witchcraft and paganism. It's very tailor it to your liking. And a lot of it is instinctual. A lot of it's trusting your intuition and tapping into that. So, a lot of the time you might have one thing set out to do and then just totally sharp turn to another way of honoring yourself and the season. I hope you've come away from this episode with some bits of history and facts to wow your mortal friends and family with, or in my case, probably more like Colin Robinsoning them, the energy vampire from What We Do in the Shadows. Hopefully not. Hopefully those aren't the vibes you're sending. Might be, especially if they're not into your spooky antics. But that's why we have this space together, Too Cool for School, the podcast. So wrapping up, I'd love to hear what you guys like to do for Easter weekend. Spending time with your family, is going to a service, or if you're like me and, probably nothing, but might do pagan shit later. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of Too Cool for School, the podcast. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Thanks for sitting for a spell. Stay spooky, boils and ghouls, goblins and ghosts. Till next time. So, rabbits and eggs. Easter. Super sexy. Dun, 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 dun.